Okay. Let's put that there. Yeah. Okay, so we're live. I think I'm muted still, am I? Is that muted or not? Okay, so we're in biz. Thanks, Money. What's that? Oh, okay. So I'm just waiting for a couple of minutes so everyone can join. We've had major technical problems. Okay. Can people hear and see the temple and myself and so on? Hi Tim, Mckibben, that's sounding promising. Can hear. Thanks, Heather. All right. So we'll just wait a couple more minutes for people to join. Yeah. Good. Okay, what do you reckon, Money? Let's start off. Let's start off with the prayers. Yep. Okay. All right. Welcome everyone. Sorry about the late start. We had major problems with 2 laptops, and Mckibben's managed to sort it all out. So I think we're up and running. We'll just start off with the prayers as in English, just in English, as we're going over time. So on page 19, praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. Teacher, Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly pure and complete Buddha, all-knowing, having poise, Sugata, apprehender of the world, navigator of beings to be subdued, incomparable, teacher of gods and humans, to the Buddha, the Bhagawan, the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, we prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. To the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. To the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. This ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, the 4 continents, adorned with sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. I prostrate my 3 doors with a mind of respect and offer all actually arranged and mentally emanated offerings. I reveal all the downfalls and negativities that I have ever collected and rejoice individuals and superiors. Please remain perfectly abiding until samsara is no longer seen. I request you to turn the vast and profound wheels of Dharma. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others. Prayer of the lineage of gurus. Body born from 1,000,000 magnificent excellent virtues, speech fulfilling the hopes of infinite beings, a mind that sees all objects of knowledge precisely, I bow my head to the chief among the Shakyas, supreme sons of the incomparable teacher, carrying the load of all the conqueror's deeds, by their emanations appearing in countless realms, I prostrate to Maitreya and Manjushri. The mother of conquerors is difficult to fathom. The precise thought is in commentaries written by Jambavipa's ornaments, Nagarjuna and Asanga. I prostrate at the feet of those most renowned in the 3 realms. From these two great chariots come the excellent lineages of the paths of profound view and vast deeds. Their essential points gathered thoroughly and without fault. Prostration to the lamp holding this treasury of instruction, giving explanation through compassion, by seeing precisely and completely the essential points of all paths of Sutra and Tantra, holder of the conqueror's entire holy Dharma, prostrations to the glorious Losantrapa. I, seen all the infinite teachings, supreme way of crossing for those entering the journey to liberation, moved by compassion to deeds skilled in method, prostrations to the spiritual masters who make everything clear. Then page 27, the prayer of the path to enlightenment, the great treasury of excellence. The kind master is the basis of all qualities, and proper reliance is the root of the path. By seeing this excellence and through much striving, bestow blessings to be devoted with great respect. This gentle support of freedom, obtained this one time, is most difficult to achieve. Knowing its great value gives rise to a mind seizing its essence constantly day and night. Bestow blessings to generate this continuum unceasingly. It is like a bubble in water, this constantly moving body and life. Thus remember the swift collapse of death. Beyond death, like body and shadow, white and black karmic results follow after. By gaining firm certainty in this, the mass of faults, subtle and very subtle, are abandoned, and the accomplishment of all virtuous collections completed. Bestow blessings to ever attain conscientiousness. The qualities of samsara are unfit to be trusted, the door to all suffering. Do not be content with these enjoyments. By knowing its defects, bestow blessings to develop a great aspiration for the bliss of liberation. By that pure thought, great conscientiousness is drawn forth, and mindfulness and awareness of the individual liberation, the root of the teachings. Bestow blessings to make this the essential practice. Just as I myself have fallen into samsara's ocean, all living beings as mother are also like that. By seeing the responsibility for the liberation of beings, bestow blessings to be trained in supreme bodhicitta. However, by merely generating the mind, if not acquainted with the three aspects of ethics, enlightenment will not be attained. By seeing this excellence, bestow blessings to train with strong effort in the vows of the conqueror's sons. Pacifying distraction toward perverse objects, by way of proper analysis of the perfect meaning, bestow blessings to swiftly and continuously generate the path related to the union of calm abiding and special insight. Thus becoming a vessel trained in the common paths, enter the Vajrayana, supreme evolution of all vehicles. Bestow blessings to engage the easy path itself, that sacred way of crossing for fortunate beings. The base of practice for the two aspects of attainment is when guarding the pure vows of commitment is found to be genuine and certain. Bestow blessings to protect them even at risk of life. Then by understanding properly the important points, which are the essence of the two stages of the Tantra classes, bestow blessings to practice according to these holy teachings with continuous effort in the supreme full session yoga. Like that, may the spiritual friend revealing the gentle path and the friends of proper practice stand firm. Bestow blessings to quickly pacify the masses of outer and inner hindrances. In all rebirths may I never be parted from perfect gurus and the enjoyment of the glorious Dharma. By utterly completing all qualities, paths and grounds, may I quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. So we'll start off with some meditation as usual. Excuse me. So just settling into meditation posture and relaxing, letting go of all tension about failed AV equipment, and tension about who knows what, American elections and this, that, and the other. So we can focus on the breathing out for 7 out breaths, breathing out all old stale air. And focusing on 7 in-breaths. And imagine you're breathing in fresh, clean air from the oceans, from the forests, and from the pure lands, filling the body and mind with fresh, beautiful, clean air. And breathing out all sickness, causes of sickness, any tension, any bad memories, worries, negativity, upset, and so on, all negative karma, all delusions, in the form of black light and black smoke. Breathing it out, it disappears into space for 7 out breaths. And breathing in good health, energy, long life, love and compassion, and the wisdom of all holy beings, all Buddhas. So, for example, White Tara, Chenrezig, Manjushri, and so on. And from all holy beings, such as Archandrit Lama, for many of us, Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, and so on. Breathing in the form of beautiful, radiant white light that fills your mind and fills your body with health and enlightened qualities for 7 in-breaths. And we can contemplate that we might have spent much of our life with a sort of imagining or a bit of a fantasy about our life will become problem-free if only we do the next thing and sort out the next problem. And for many of us, probably for all of us, that's never occurred. Because, as the Buddha said in his turning of the wheel of the Four Noble Truths, of true suffering, the truth of suffering within samsara. So for that reason, we've never reached the point where there aren't external worries from climate to politicians or dictators around the world or upset bosses or difficult relationships or internal worries with our own body, our own health difficulties, and our own mind difficulties. So our mind continuously changing from moment to moment, sometimes bored, sometimes dissatisfied, sometimes good relation and happy, and that quickly changes with a few words. And the Buddha said we experience obvious suffering or manifest suffering, such as COVID or losing a loved one and so on. And we experience changing suffering, or even if we were in a heavenly realm, with this mind, we'd quickly become bored, we'd become upset and dissatisfied and grasping and so on. And pervasive suffering at every moment of our existence is bound by and conditioned by delusion and karma. So we never experience the peace of someone who's attained, for example, calm abiding. We never experience the peace of a superior, someone who's realized emptiness. We experience pervasive suffering or unsatisfactoriness. So because we are caught in samsara, we need a reliable refuge, a refuge that works, that can resolve samsara. And that refuge, according to the Buddha, and according to all the great masters who've realized this path, is the triple gem, the holy Buddha, the holy Dharma, and the holy Sangha. And of those three, the actual refuge that transforms our samsaric experience into liberation is the holy Dharma. And of the holy Dharma, of the 84,000 Dharmas, the teaching that liberates us is the perfection of wisdom. So therefore we study today the teachings on the perfection of wisdom, the special insight section of the Path to Enlightenment. To transform our understanding of reality and become capable of liberating not only yourself, but your friends, your family, all strangers, all enemies, all living beings of the six realms, through this liberating wisdom. So we focus on bodhicitta, stabilize on bodhicitta, this determination to realize the perfection of wisdom, to attain special insight for the benefit of all living beings. Okay, so we're starting on page 843, and we're looking at the 7 examples of emptiness. Okay, so emptiness is a difficult subject for us to understand because it's very subtle. It's a very subtle subject, but it is accessible to reason, which is very lucky for us. Unlike, for example, karma is less accessible to reason, the subject of emptiness. So we need to, we might have a generic image. When we meditate on emptiness, we might have an image of emptiness as being like space, because it's always described as space-like. So we imagine space. Or we might think of a vacuum, Or if the meditation is not going so well, we might think of a hole in the ground, or any some sort of absence. And so we're not actually getting that emptiness with those things, because it's the emptiness of inherent existence we're trying to understand. So for the Buddha gave these 7 examples because examples are good if you can have an example of some tangible, a more tangible thing, something we easily understand, but it sort of illustrates a point or a relationship in a more subtle thing, then it helps us move towards that understanding. You know, like if you say you're acting like a bull in a china shop, then you might sort of look at the more subtle thing, which is your behaviour or how you're speaking to someone, or So examples are useful. There's lots of ways of getting emptiness, like analysis and coming from dependent arising, but examples are a useful support for understanding. And these 7 examples they're examples of mistaken appearances, and they show they sort of suggest the ultimate truth and the conventional truth and the mistaken appearance that's going on, obstructing those things. So but currently for us ordinary beings, we're obstructed from a reality is composed of conventional truth and ultimate truth. Those are exhaustive. They incorporate all existence. And currently we're obstructed from both of those. So we're in a bit of a predicament because we don't get ultimate truth, emptiness, and we don't get conventional truth, mere dependent. I think my speaker just disconnected. I'm not sure. Keep going? Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. So how karma can still function and things, cause and effect, still happen within that middle way. So here in the Path to Enlightenment, then Geshe gives the example of television. So I'm not sure, it's a very good example, and I'm not sure why Lord Tsongkhapa and the Buddha didn't mention it. Do you think it'd be fairly self-evident? But Anyway, Geshe mentions television here, and how when we're watching television, we get thoroughly engaged in what's going on. Like, we can get highly involved. So, whether it's a frightening scene and we're sort of jumping away and we're flinching and sweating and the heart's starting to race. There's the music building up like in Jaws, as something's moving up towards the surfboard and it's going dun 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 dun, and we have very strong reaction to that. Or a love story, and they've been separated forever and sort of endured all this, and then gradually coming together, and the music builds up to a crescendo, and we get very emotionally involved. And it's embarrassing. I watched Invictus the other day, which is a really good movie about Mandela, and it's hard not for a tear not to come to the eye when you're watching that movie. What we're actually looking at is dots of light on the screen. So we're not actually seeing, any actual person or any actual happening. We're just watching dots of light and creating a story from there. It's good that it shows we see things as being inherently attractive, inherently frightening, inherently beautiful, and so on from their own side. And it's a good example of how we, through the power of the mind, are establishing all of those things that seem to be presented to us from the side of the object. Yeah. And so those things in everyday life, we have the same experience. We see some people as inherently beautiful and some people as inherently nasty or repulsive. And we might flirt with the inherently beautiful one and sort of get repelled or angry at the inherently nasty one, when mostly what we're doing is reacting to our own mental creation. So we're sort of flirting with our own mind or shouting at our own mind what's been established by our own mind, rather than with the an objectively existent person. So that's how we generate psychic existence, through all these exaggerations. It's the high extreme, it's the over reification. And we see things as really good. Some people view Trump's defeat as being really good. Some view it as really bad. It's just self-evidently bad or self-evidently good. And it's very convincing. And from those exaggerations, we generate negative karma, and we generate suffering. So that's how we establish samsara. Okay, so these 7 examples the Buddha mentioned, he didn't mention television. So the first one is the reflection in the mirror. And Geshe often used to say, when you're young, the mirror's your friend. And so when you're young and you catch your reflection in the shop window, it's, what a bonus. You can see this wonderful looking person looking back at you, and you sort of, as a teenager, you're sort of self-conscious and very more interested in your image than maybe as you get older. And then as you get older, you catch your appearance in the shop window and you think, who's that sort of stooped, balding person who's following me all the time? So it's not so nice. But anyway, the reaction to the image in the mirror, when we get up, for example, in the morning, if you're feeling brave and you look in the mirror first thing, and again, we have strong emotional reactions. It's highly significant, that image. So we don't see the image in the mirror as being an inherently existent person. You don't imagine that's another John or another Margaret or another Mary, another you in your bathroom. If you really thought that, you'd jump out of your skin that there's a clone walking around your bathroom. So we don't see that, but we do see, we're looking at empty glass, and we see this image of ourselves, and it invokes very significant reactions, like might be depressed, you always see faults in yourself, or you might feel, the ego inflates because you're looking so wonderful. And so Geshe, in one oral teaching on this, he said, we don't think the image of of the face is you. You don't think the image of your face is you, but you think the image of your face is truly existent. It's truly ugly. It's truly beautiful. And it's truly significant. So, when in actuality, the image is a dependent arising. We're looking at empty glass. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at glass. And it's the dependent arising. It depends on lots of things, such as our eye organ, our optic nerve, our brain processing, depends on the lighting, and depends on the glass and the reflective coating, and so on. So Geshe explains in the Path to Enlightenment that we, in ordinary life, we're projecting I as being real from its own side. So we spend our life preoccupied with the I, with me, and we see it as being a sort of substantial entity, a very defined real thing, like we looked at last week or the week before. The I as the possessor, the I that owns the body, owns the mind, and this sort of defined thing. So we project it as being very real and solid, and from that we define sort of a dualistic view of the world, of self and other, inherently me, and everyone else is inherently other. So there's this sort of dualistic, exaggerated division that occurs. And then from that, the other that does pleasant things that the I likes, it then becomes attractive and becomes a friend, and there's grasping and craving. And the I that does unpleasant things, the other that does unpleasant things, generates feelings of sort of animosity, and they become the enemy. They become defined as inherently a nasty person, a bad person, and so on. And from that, deluded actions arise. And so samsara arises from that, from that taking that image, like the image in the mirror, taking it to over-reifying it, over-exaggerating its significance, or its ontological status, its degree of reality. And we do that with the I. So Geshe explains we need to recognize the I as dependent arising. So rather than this self-contained entity, I, the me that becomes really clear when someone You're near a cliff or near a riverbank, you almost fall in, and that eye that jumps out at you, the eye almost fell in. We need to recognize it as dependent arising. So dependent on body, dependent on mind, a mere dependent arising, dependent on the thought I, the designation I, the appearance to mind I, and dependent on the base of designation, our body and mind, or our five aggregates, or however you want to divide up the parts of the person. So we need to recognize we're all emptiness and dependent arising, simultaneously emptiness and dependent arising. So that's the first example, the reflection in a mirror. The second is a reflection of the moon in a lake. And Geshe here says in the King of Concentration Sutra, the Buddha said, when the moon in the clear skies reflected image appears in a clear lake, the moon has not moved into the lake. The nature of all phenomena is to be known like this. So when you get a really clear, beautiful, clear sky, maybe you're out in the country or in Tibet, up in a mountain with a mountain lake, and everything's completely still, or a summer evening when you're near a very, very still lake, it's full moon, beautiful, beautiful night, and you get a very clear image of the moon in the lake. And it actually looks like the moon. And it's sort of mesmerizing, it's soothing, just to look at the moon in the lake, similar to looking at the actual moon. And Geshe in his teaching said sometimes cats would try and paw and get the moon in the lake. They think it's the real moon. So, but in actuality, it's just water. So the King of Concentration, the Buddha said the moon hasn't moved into the lake, and these appearances having the same effect. It's having a very similar effect because we take it like the moon. And similarly that although everything appears real to us and true from its own side, truly existent, there is no objective reality in that way. So there's no what's called ultimately existing things that are established from their own side. So Geshe mentions at this point that the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva, even their eye consciousness, they have the appearance of things being real and being inherently existent. It's only the Buddha. So the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva doesn't believe it because they've realized emptiness, but they still have this appearance of inherent existence. It's only the Buddha. It's only when you're enlightened, you've overcome the obstructions to omniscience, that you lose that appearance, a deceptive appearance of inherent existence or true existence. So those obstructions to omniscience, Geshe mentions them in his fundamental potential, and there are things like the latency of the conception of inherent existence and the appearance of inherent existence. And I think the third one he mentions is the stains of the stains of holding the two truths as being different entities. So the stains of holding emptiness and the dependent arising as being separate things. Only the Buddha has overcome all of those things. So the next example is a dream. And again, from the King of Concentration Sutra, it says, for example, a young girl in a dream gives birth to a boy and then sees him dying. She was happy at having him, but unhappy at his dying. All phenomena are to be known like this. So dreams are totally persuasive. So in dreams, we experience the full range of emotions. One night you're being chased by zombies who want to eat your brain, and you're sort of stuck in this swamp of porridge, and you can't move. And then the next night you're in the sound of music, and you're running up the hills, tra la la la, and the sunshine and the rainbows and the bluebirds. Yeah, you might wake up with fear, drenched in sweat. You're having all these physical reactions to the dream. You might wake up drenched in any other unsavory bodily substances. In a dream, I suppose a real one, you could loosen your bowels and all sorts of. But the point is, the mind is having all these physiological responses from the dream. So the example the Buddha gives here is a girl who sounds like she really wants a baby. She dreams of having a baby, and she has it, and she's just totally joyful at this her baby's birth, and her body's filled with joy, her mind's filled with joy, and then the baby dies in the dream, and she's absolutely devastated, and she wakes up devastated. So the grief and the joy all being established from these appearances to the mind, these dream appearances. So similarly, the appearances in samsara are, our mind is like a giant, like a giant concrete pump, that everything we perceive, we then over-reify, we over-exaggerate its status. We see the world as jumping out at us, these concrete entities from their own side. And there's no doubt in our mind that that's how things are. And so similarly to the dream, we over-exaggerating what it actually is. And so the mind, because of that exaggeration, there's this tremendous grasping goes on, and the tremendous aversion, just like in the dream. And it's only when we awaken from the dream, or we realize we're dreaming in the middle of a dream, that we get a relief from these, from the stress of it all, because we understand this is just an appearance to mind. So similarly, the Buddha, with his perfection of wisdom teachings, has provided a pathway out of our perpetual samsaric dream, so perpetually being dissatisfied or being grasping, being upset, being angry, suffering, being in pain, all those very real experiences we have, they appear so real. Then the Buddha's provided the method to see this is just a projection of mind, that all things are merely imputed, merely designated. And from consequence school viewpoint, that word mere is very important because it means there's nothing behind the appearance. So there is no objective book, there is no objective I, there is no objective nasty person. There's mere book, mere I, and so on. So designation upon the base of designation, the parts of the thing. So dream's a good one because the dream's a really good example because we have that experience all the time and we can see the power of our mind in establishing that reality. So the next one is mistaken visual consciousness. And the example here is given a rope and a snake. It might be more prevalent. I've never really seen a rope as being a snake. But in Australia, what I have experienced is seeing the head when you're walking down a path in the bush and you see the head of a blue-tongued lizard and you think that's a snake. And you experience a great deal of fear. You jump and you have to go and change your undies. So similar to the roped snake, it's a mistaken visual consciousness. And with the rope snake, Geshe explains, there's nothing inherently fearful. And if you see the head of a blue-tongued lizard, there's nothing fearful there. But your whole body is full of adrenaline because you immediately see it as being dangerous, and so on. So Geshe explains there's nothing inherently fearful within samsara. Like there's lots of things that can hurt us. There's lots of things that can cause suffering, but nothing inherently fearful from its own side, and there's no inherent suffering from its own side. So within the prism of emptiness, within the perspective of emptiness, there's that really good verse in the Perfection of Patience chapter in the Path to Enlightenment, when it says something along the lines of, to a bodhisattva who sees selflessness, by whom, when, and how is he cut? As he sees all things as illusory, he will be patient. So within the perspective of emptiness, there's not that inherently a fearful thing. Then this mistaken visual consciousness also gives the example of a mirage. So again, many of us have seen on hot days, whether on the roadway or in the desert, you see a mirage. And if you're in the desert and actually really running out of water, you might just pursue that mirage. It's like there's beautiful life-saving water over there, and you've just got to go there. And apparently, even some animals will pursue the mirage, trying to find the water. And then when the nice thing about the example is that when you get closer to where you've seen the water, it should become more clear. So when you get closer to the mirage water, you should be able to see nice sparkling water, because when you get closer to anything, it becomes clearer. But when you get closer to a mirage, it's disappeared. And the example Geshe has explained is when phenomena appear to be inherently existent, when you examine them closely, like the mirage, they disappear. They're actually unfindable. So whether you're looking for the eye, you're looking in your body, looking in the mind, looking in the five aggregates, or whether you're looking for anything else, with ultimate analysis, if you're actually looking for that entity, that thing, you go closer and closer, and it disappears. It's unfindable. So the mirage example is nice like that. And Geshe talks about how we chase our hopes in psychic existence, like chasing the mirage. Like at the start of that meditation we did, I mentioned, many of us still have that sort of underlying hope of this being free, getting to this situation of free from suffering. And within samsara, there's always something in your life that obstructs that, and there always will be until we realize emptiness. So we chase and grasp after things, we grasp after the new television and so on, but that happiness is like the mirage, it isn't sustained, elusive and disappears. So I'll quote a verbal on this one, Geshe on an oral teaching. He said, if a mirage is water, then Nagarjuna's dual rosary said that seen from long distance, and you see mountains, then when you go nearby to the mountains, they're more clear, and you can see the water in the mountains, and the detail is more clear. And if a mirage is water, then when we go there, then why is the water not more clear? Therefore, the mirage is not water. All objects we know that appear inherently existent, truly existent, independently existent, like a mirage appears to be water. So, yeah, that's a very nice example. And Geshe said, when nearby, when superior beings, they never see all phenomena as truly existent. So when a superior being, someone with a wisdom perceiving emptiness, they never see, when they look closely, they never see that true existence. What Geshe said, ordinary people seeing this book, they see 100% see it as an existent book. Superior beings, they see this book is existent, but it's emptiness of inherent existence. It's nominally existent, dependently existent. And Geshe said, therefore, it's a very difficult situation like this. The next example is the magician's illusion. And the nice thing about this example, it explains the different levels of 3 different levels of mind, of realization. And the different appearance, and it explains the difference between the appearance of inherent existence and the conception, the belief in inherent existence, which are really the 2 obstructions to liberation and omniscience. The obstruction to liberation is really the conception of inherent existence, and the obstruction to omniscience is the appearance of inherent existence. So I'll quote again the King of Concentration Sutra. Though a magician creates forms, horses, elephants, chariots, and a variety, there is nothing of what appears to him. All phenomena are to be known like this. So in the Buddha's time, there must have been magicians who could get hold of some substances and some mantras and then create this illusion of the appearance, for example, of a lion or a beautiful woman or a beautiful man, and so on. I've never seen a magician like that, but in the old days, you used to go to the circus, and sorry, I was just trying to find something to blow my nose on. And you'd see a magician saw someone in half. The person would climb in the box, and they'd get the saw out and saw down, and it was very shocking. So anyway, so we have sort of seen those sorts of things, those magic tricks, those the deceptive appearances. So we go back to the magician in ancient India creating this image, these appearances of a tiger, say, and the audience who are there, they have the appearance of the tiger. They see this appearance, and they absolutely believe it's real, and they're terrified of this tiger. So that's similar to us ordinary beings in samsara. We see these appearances of inherently existent things, and we absolutely believe them, and they govern our lives, and they govern all our responses, and all all the nonsense we go through, and all the stress, and coming from that appearance and belief in inherent existence. So that's the first person, the audience members. They're terrified of the tiger. The second level is the magician himself or herself, who they see the appearance, but they don't believe in the appearance because they've created it. They absolutely know there's no tiger there. And Geshe explains this is like someone who has a good understanding of emptiness. They're still having these appearances of inherent existence, but they're not convinced by them. So this would be, for example, a superior. They say after someone's meditated on emptiness and perceived it directly, there's an illusory, like post-meditative equipoise where the world appears illusory. It doesn't appear as substantial and solid. So that person doesn't believe in the appearances. They've seen emptiness directly. So that's what the magician's like. He's like the person with a good understanding of emptiness. Then there's the passerby in this example, who the passerby is Geshe said the magician is like someone who has a good understanding but hasn't directly perceived emptiness. So then the passerby doesn't see the appearance of the tiger and doesn't believe, because it wasn't there when the magician created it, and doesn't believe in it. And that is like, in Geshe gives the example, that's like someone who's directly perceived emptiness. So presumably, Geshe is saying when they're in meditative equipoise on emptiness, there's no false appearance of, there's not even the false appearance of an inherent existence. So like the passerby, there's no appearance of tiger. But you do sometimes hear this analogy being used to explain the three are slightly different to how Geshe has explained it. That the passerby is like the Buddha, because the Buddha never has appearances of true existence, and the magician is like the Arya being who's realized emptiness, but still he doesn't believe in emptiness, but still has appearances. And then the ordinary being's just the ordinary being again. So, but yeah, it's a good example. It explains the difference between appearances and conception or belief in reality. Then the sixth example is like the echo. So I'm just wondering where I put my phone. I just want to see how I'm going for time. Oh dear. Okay, going too slow. The echo is sounds like a real person. So as kids, or a lot of us, if we've been to caves, we shout out, "Hello, hello," and then how are you? How are you? And you have a conversation with the echo, and it sounds like someone shouting back. And if you want positive feedback, you say, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're so wonderful, I love you," and you get the voice back, and you feel good. So that's the echo. And the Buddha said that an echo is like uh, we get this appearances of real people. So if you hear someone's voice, for example, you say, "Oh yes, that's Mark, that's Heather, that's Margaret." You hear the voice, and you sort of establish a truly existent person. And yeah, and Geshe explains in this example, it's just the aggregation of conditions that allows that appearance. So it's an aggregation of, for example, when you see someone else, what you see is shape and color. When you hear someone else, you think, "Oh yes, I've heard that person." But what you hear is a sound wave vibrating your eardrum, and you establish, so you establish a person from that. So it's an aggregation of particular causes and conditions and a designation. Yes, that's Mark. Yes, that's Mary, and so on. So the last one is the last example is the Buddha's manifestation, and again, I think this is one of the harder ones because I'm not sure if I've been aware of ever knowing a Buddha's manifestation. Though living with Geshe, I wouldn't be surprised. I've seen, some Geshe do some remarkable things, I suppose. One time with the weather. But anyway, this Buddha's manifestation, the explanation is how Buddha can manifest as a bridge or a boat to support living beings, or as a drunk in the pub to give you a nudge along, give you some good advice, someone you can relate to. Or so the Buddha's manifestation, they seem real, they seem truly existent, but they're not. They're just they're not. It's not a real bridge. It's not a real boat. In the same way, all the appearances in our world appear real. So the summary Geshe has given on some commentaries is all phenomena appear inherently existent. All things appear truly existent. They appear independently existent. They appear established from their own side, self-sustaining, existing within their own entity, and so on and so on. They appear to exist from their own side, out there, presented towards us. But the reality is, everything is established through designation, through mere convention. So that misconception is, as I said before, the perfection of wisdom teaches everything is merely labeled. Consequence school, prasangika. Things are merely labeled. But that's different from things being a mere label. For example, a mere label, if you've got a Dymo printer and you print out a mere label, a truck, You've got a labelled truck. That's different to a merely labelled truck. So you can't just stand in front of a merely labelled truck and regard it as just a label. It's merely labelled. It's not a truck from its own side. It's labelled independence on its parts, causes and conditions. And you can't find one atom of truck within that truck. But it can still squash your car very, very easily. The cause and effect still functions. But it is unfindable as a inherently existent truck, the way it appears. So, yeah. So we shouldn't go into fantasy land about what emptiness is teaching us. When things are merely labelled, they're not mere labels. There is a functioning conventional reality. Okay, so that's the 7 examples. Then on page 849, Geshe gets to the actual meditation on emptiness and starts on the 4-part meditation on the emptiness of the persons. So here he explains selflessness and emptiness as being ultimate truth. Like there's no sort of deeper or more profound mode of way that things exist than their emptiness. And that the functional, that's the ultimate truth of the I or self. And the functional self is the conventional truth. So the functional you is the conventional truth of you, and that they're the same entity. They're not separate things. Your emptiness and you are not separate things. So person and self and sense of identity, I, that's synonyms. They're talking about, with regards to the I, in that sense, self is the same thing. Self is also used to explain self-existence of other things. But with regards to the person, then it's the same thing. It's a synonym. And this I is the sort of central reference point for our entire life. So we frame everything in relation to I. That's the way we I walk into this room, I feel this temperature, I see these people. There's always, even if we're focusing on the other things, like a footy match, there's always the I there in the center. It's the hub of our universe, hub of our world. And if we sort of ask, who are you really? Who am I really? And you sort of start listing off maybe some of your history. You might list off, I was born here, this is my family, and this is the work I do, this is my gender. But you sort of get a sense you're missing who am I really? You're missing the I. You're listing off all these things. And you're still trying to find who am. And we sort of have this like underlying anxiety about the I being maybe not as substantial as it appears. And we sort of have to sustain or prop up this concept of I. And it's quite challenging if somebody if someone undercuts or challenges your view of who you are, like your view, I'm a good person, or I'm like, I protect the environment, and someone points out very clearly some contrary fact, then it's very, very challenging. It's undercutting the sense of I. So the I is not quite so substantial, and we might spend a lot of time trying to reinforce it because underneath we know it's not. It's hard to actually. It's not as substantial as it appears. So we might be quite touchy about the I. And even the most powerful people in the world can be very touchy. For example, Donald Trump. If you say loser, then you can be very touchy about that sense of self. Or President Xi in China didn't like the Winnie the Pooh meme. Is a bit touchy about that. Or Tony Blair didn't like being called George Bush's puppy. So even the most powerful sort of these characters on the world stage, the I is fragile. It's grasping at I. So we cling to this sense of I, who I am, and we try and reinforce it, and we seek validation. We seek approval or validation about the I. So you might want, you want someone to show they like you, they like I, they like me, or they laugh at my jokes, or they think you want them to think I am intelligent or whatever. So we seek that validation, approval to prop up this I. We want acceptance of the I. So that's part of samsara, this preoccupation with I and how the I feels, and these perfection of wisdom teachings present a sort of, I suppose, I'm not sure what a paradigm shift is, but I think this might be one. A shift in perspective away from this fragility and vulnerability of the I, where we see the emptiness of I, and then like that bodhisattva in the perfection of patience, who is there to be harmed? It's a transformation. So when we meditate on emptiness, we don't disappear. When we meditate on I, the I is not annihilated, even though we can't find it. And realizing the emptiness of I is liberating. The emptiness of the transitory view of the transitory collection is liberating. So it's not a threat. It must be an enormous release of tension. Similar to in a dream, when we're always stressed in a samsaric dream, then we realize it's just a fantasy. So that's sort of liberation, the freedom from that stress, that tension. So emptiness is a negation. It's not a negation of the person. It's not a negation of conventional existence. It's not annihilating who you are or your family and so on and so on. It's not negating existence. It's negating a imaginary type of existence that we're imprisoned by or we're obscured by, that veils all of our reality. And that's the view of inherent existence or true existence. So that's what emptiness negates. What emptiness, seeing emptiness liberates us from. It's removing the veil. And we do that by eliminating the possibility of inherent existence. So in this four-part analysis, we remove the possibility of inherent existence, because we look everywhere for the inherently existent I or the inherent existent person, and we find it's not there. So I think we're going to have to go on. Yeah, we're going to have to go on to next week for this 4-part meditation. So I'm going a bit slow, really, but what can you do? These are such extraordinary teachings. But we've only got 2 more weeks, I think, of Path to Enlightenment to finish off. So we'll go on next week and we'll look at this 4-part analysis. Is probably the most important part of the whole chapter, maybe, that in the dependent arising. Because Geshe gave this again and again as a method for meditating on emptiness. It's the easiest way. And we can get at it at dependent arising, but to really directly get at it, this is the 4-part point method, is what we need to focus on. So we'll look at that next week, and you can read up on it this week, and if you like. Okay, so we'll finish off with the prayers, and we'll go to page 31. So the final prayer of the graduated path. By the 2 collections vast as space, amassed with effort for a long time, may I become a chief of conquerors, a guide for all beings whose mind's eye is blinded by ignorance. Also in all lives who will not yet come to that, may Manjushri favour me with his compassion, finding the supreme path, complete with all stages of the teachings. May I please the conquerors by practicing well. By my precise understanding of the essential points of the path, with skillful means drawn along by strong compassion, and by dispelling the mental darkness of beings, may I uphold the conqueror's teaching for a long time. Where the supreme precious teaching has not spread, also where it has spread but become degenerate, with a mind deeply moved by great compassion, may I make clear this treasure of benefit and bliss. The stages of the path, excellently established by the marvelous deeds of the conquerors and their sons, give glory to the minds of those aspiring for liberation. May the conquerors' deeds be long preserved. May all humans and non-humans who remove the obstructions and establish conditions favorable to cultivating the excellent path never be parted for all of their lifetimes from the purest of paths which the Buddhas have praised. When someone makes effort to practice properly the 10 points of conduct of the Supreme Vehicle, may he always be assisted by the mighty protectors, and may oceans of good fortune spread out, reaching all. And the special dedication. Whatever white virtues we have thus created, we dedicate as causes, enabling us to uphold the holy Dharma of Scripture and realization, and to fulfill without exception the prayers and deeds of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times. By the power of this merit, in all our lives, may we never be parted from the 4 wheels of the Mahayana, and may we complete the journey on the paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, pure view, and the 2 stages. By this virtue, may all beings complete the collections of wisdom and merit, and attain the 2 holy bodies arisen from wisdom and merit. May the precious superior mind of enlightenment be generated in those who have not yet generated it, and not decrease in those who have developed it, but increase continuously. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy our newfound freedoms to travel and so on. Yep, thank you. I'll just have a quick look at the computer, see if there's any questions. But sorry? Oh, Deb has a question. Okay, let me just see what the question is. The question has disappeared, but I will ask another time. Oh, it's disappeared into emptiness, the question. The question says, thanks, Tim and Money, my question has disappeared. I will ask another time. Yeah. So, okay, I think she knows she can. Yeah. How can you view the world with non-duality? Oh, crikey, that's a trick. Okay, so Deb's asked quite a tricky question. How can you view the world with non-duality? Sorry? How can you view the world with non-duality? Yeah. Oh, sorry? The subsequent question below that. Oh, is there? Wouldn't the world disappear? Wouldn't the world disappear? So, in one sense, yes, it would disappear, because there's lots of different meanings of non-duality. And one of them is just the exaggeration of self and other. But more specifically, one definition of non-duality is the realization of emptiness is going beyond non-duality. But specifically, the realization the Buddha has of the two truths being inseparable. So the emptiness of the object and the actual object. So the I appearing to you and the emptiness of the I, seeing them as being the same thing. So if you're meditating on emptiness, you've gone beyond duality when you're in meditative equipoise. So, for example, a superior who's realized emptiness and nothing is appearing to mind but the absence of inherent existence. That's a non-dual experience. And within that experience, there's no other appearance. So from that sense, the world has disappeared. But when they come out of meditative equipoise, there's still the world of appearances and so on. And Geshe used to say, when he led meditations on emptiness, at the end of it, or the emptiness of the I, or the emptiness of the mind, he'd say, well, there's still the mind experiencing emptiness. So it hasn't disappeared. You haven't disappeared. Your mind hasn't disappeared. There's the experience of emptiness, the cognition of emptiness. So more, I suppose, for the full realization of emptiness. So that's the Buddha's realization, where we've overcome not just the conception of inherent existence and the belief in inherent existence, but we've overcome the appearance of inherent existence. Then the world has not in any way disappeared, but it's been transformed. Our perception of it has been transformed into reality. So the Buddha perceives all conventional appearances simultaneously with knowing their emptiness. So in that sense, you're seeing the world for the first time, because at the moment we're just seeing the world obscured by this veil of ignorance, this over-solidified, over-concretized, overly substantial things existing from their own side, so on and so on and so on. We're seeing the dream as being real, not as an appearance to mind. So in that sense, the world doesn't disappear. We actually see the world and everything within it as it is for the first time when we attain enlightenment. So, yeah, something along those lines, I think. Thanks, Deb. Yeah. Was there another question? Okay, there's another question. I can't. My long vision's not brilliant, so I'll just have a. There is no other. Wouldn't the world disappear? There is no other. So are there two levels of seeing, through physical eyes and spiritual eyes? Yeah, I mean, there's different types of consciousness. In Buddhism presents different types of consciousness. So there's visual consciousness, which perceives shape and color, and they rely on your physical eyes. So that's one thing. And then there's mental consciousness, which apprehends things like concepts and so on. So when we see shape and color, a shape and color, you know, you might see someone in the distance, you just see a blue shape, a blue color, a particular shape. But we, the visual consciousness directly perceives that. Then we sort of project, oh, there's John. And so it gets mixed with John, and we project an inherently existent John. So an inherently existent body, inherently existent John. So the direct sense perception then becomes mixed with various concepts and projections of external objective existence separate from the mind, separate from the imputing consciousness, saying John. So yeah, I'm not sure what a spiritual eye is, but there's various levels of wisdom. There's mental direct perceivers and yogic direct perception, and there's, with regards to emptiness, there's indirect perception where we're getting at it through a mental image. Then there's direct perception, and so on. So, yeah. Yep. Thanks, Deb. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Money. I'll end this.